I work with a lot of people with anxiety, and in 90% of cases, I've learned that what is driving the anxiety is actually repressed anger, which very few people suspect. People think of anxiety as almost like a virus, something that you just kind of catch and then you have. It's like, oh, I have anxiety. They never ask the question of like, well, why? Like, what's going on here? What is this sensation, feeling trying to communicate to me or achieve? Because your nervous system is creating it on purpose. So what's that all about? We're going to talk a little bit about that in this episode and go into how you can use this knowledge of repressed anger to free yourself from the shackles and imprisonment of anxiety. Now, if you actually explore your anxiety, most people just try and push it away, fix it, change it. I don't want to look at it. Let's fix they try and fix the external world. If you actually pay attention to the sensation of anxiety and feel into it, you'll notice that behind it is a sense of helplessness, of being trapped, impotent, out of control, stuck, something like that. Anxiety's always got this sense of like, okay, there's some threat on the horizon that I can't control or do anything about, and we try and do something about it. Maybe it's someone's opinion about us, and so we try and behave in some way or send them a message to change them in some way, but we don't really know what they really think, so it's out of our control, and that makes us anxious. Or there's some event coming up on the horizon and we're anxious about what's going to happen because we don't know, and there's no way of knowing. And where the anger comes in is that when we feel helpless, anger is what comes in to help us take control back. It's like our life force, it's our power. If you're backed into a corner, that fight response, that fight that's been part of our nervous system for millions, hundreds of millions of years, going back to before we were even humans on the evolutionary scale, that fight response is what helps us find our way out of that trapped, stuck, helpless place. But we've all been very strongly conditioned that anger is not allowed, that we can't let that come up, it's bad, it's wrong. And this really cripples us in that regard. So we repress a lot of our anger. But the issue is that anger is also our strength, our life force, our power, our ability to stand on our own 2 feet and say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do that. To say no to people with kindness, yet with conviction. I'm not talking about the behavior of anger. That's when it explodes without control, when we're yelling at people or whatever. I'm talking about the physiological energy of anger is what helps us to move mountains in the world and be ourselves without shame or guilt. It's very, very powerful and very, very important. But what happens is that when we don't have access to this resource of our power, because we've been taught when we are small that it's not okay, we get into situations where we can't set boundaries, we can't say no. And so we need another means of dealing with the situation. And that's where anxiety comes in. It's like an alternative survival strategy to the truth of our no, the truth of our power, the truth of what's authentic and real and true for us. So let me give you an example. Say your friend Steve is getting married and you've never really liked Steve that much. You don't want to spend a whole weekend, celebrating his wedding. You've got better things to do. But he's part of your friendship group and you feel kind of bad saying no. And so what often happens for people is inside there's a no. And they really want to tell Steve, if they were really honest about it, they really just want to tell Steve, fuck off, I don't want to go to your wedding. And you actually annoy me a lot of the time. And that thing you did last summer was really obnoxious and I'm still annoyed about that. That's what they want to say, but it feels unsafe, right? You feel that tension in your chest when you even contemplate acknowledging that that's how you feel. And instead you say yes. But what happens is then the anxiety kicks in and you're anxious about the weekend, about what's going to happen and whether you're going to be able to get there, get back in time to do the things you really actually want to do. And you're worried that that Steve's going to be able to tell that you don't really want to be there, or that you don't really want to buy him a wedding present, all this stuff. The anxiety is what your nervous system is using to help you avoid the conflict in this situation, which normally your anger and power would allow you to meet. Because when we're really in touch with our anger and it's integrated healthily, we can say no to people, and we can even upset them a little bit or do things that they would prefer we didn't do, because you have this sense of being a sovereign being. It's like, I'm a sovereign being and I can choose to spend my time how I want and with whom I want. And that means that I can go to the wedding or I can not go to the wedding, and that's fine. And they will react how they react. Maybe they'll be understanding, maybe they won't. That's outside of our control, and that's okay. We can deal with that because we feel strong enough in ourselves. But most people don't feel that sense of being a sovereign being, in touch with themselves, able to choose with agency and autonomy how they act in the world, and so they get anxious instead as a kind of a coping mechanism. And so they're continuously anxious about people, events, and things. And really, what it really is just the disconnect from your own anger and a fear of setting boundaries and a fear of, the conflict and telling people things that perhaps they don't want to hear. This is in the way that anger and anxiety are two sides of the same coin. So if you investigate the anxiety, you almost always find a part of you that feels helpless and wants to, maybe you feel stuck in your job, stuck in your relationship, you feel trapped in this situation, you feel helpless in that situation, and you don't want to do this thing and you don't want to do that thing, and you want to say a massive yes to that thing over there, but you think your partner wouldn't let it happen. And there's this part of you that just wants to say fuck off to everybody and everything and just be completely free and autonomous and sovereign and alive and powerful. But that's terrifying, and so we're anxious instead. And that's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not very pleasant, and it's not true, it's not honest. And so you can slowly learn to get back in touch with your anger, which has a twofold benefit. A, you stop being so anxious, and B, you start feeling more empowered yourself. Like I said, you step more into your own power, you can say no, you're more autonomous and sovereign. This doesn't mean that you're like riding roughshod over everybody. This doesn't mean that you can't be considerate, and maybe you do choose to go to Steve's wedding because you kind of want to keep, everything cool in the group. That's fine, but it's a free choice. You could say no if you wanted to. Whereas most people are in the situation that they physically can't say no. It feels so unsafe because they've been so conditioned that it's rude and wrong, and they're going to get attacked and judged. They've been so conditioned in this way that they physically can't do it. And you want to be free in that choice, and then you can make a much more, sensible decision. So how does one go about this magical transformation? Well, I've written a lot about this in my ultimate guide to repressed anger. I've got a couple of videos on anger as well. Links will be in the description that goes into a lot of detail. In short, we learn how to really get in touch just honestly with the raw energy of the anger in our bodies, and we learn to let it be there, course through us and be felt. It's not exploding crazily, it's not being repressed, it's a middle way of letting it come and letting it be expressed. And we're not worrying so much about the situations. It's not about getting angry at Steve or anything, it's about literally living that energy of anger, of power, of no within us. And this involves two steps. Firstly, you need to pay attention to those parts of you that are afraid, that it feel unsafe to go near the anger, right? They need love, they need safety, they need attention, and you need to go into the body to find those parts because they will be unconscious, they will be hidden. You will not know where they are or how they're showing up unless you look. And as you start bringing that love, safety, helping them feel seen and acknowledged, the fear starts to relax, and there's space for the repressed anger from decades ago to start to come to the surface. And this anger will be from stuff in your childhood, at school. And you can start to learn to embody anger, by which I mean you're using the body, you're clenching the fists, you're feeling the chest tighten, maybe a really good one's pressing against a wall. I've got a whole video on somatic exercises for embodying anger, which you can search for on my channel. And that goes into much more detail about how you do that. And that's a process, and you do that again and again. Every time there's these situations, and every time you're feeling anxious, that's an opportunity to look within and go, okay, what's going on here then? What's underneath this anxiety? And then you chip away at it. You just embody a little bit more anger each time, and your nervous system transforms as you integrate it more and more to feel much more comfortable. And you can get to the point where you can express things that would have been terrifying, and it feels like you're ordering a coffee. Like you go, oh no, I don't want to go to that because I'm busy, because I prefer to go to this other thing, and it just feels like you're saying, yeah, I'll have a long black, please, with oat milk and a vegan sausage roll. Thank you very much. There's just the nervous system doesn't tighten up. There's no reaction, and it feels a lot more comfortable, a lot more satisfying. And then your life, you've got much more space to be yourself in your life, which is fucking fabulous, right? That's what we all want. So I work with people one-on-one, helping them do this kind of work, get in touch with the body, their emotions, working through the protection, defenses to help them feel more free, authentic, sovereign, all that jazz. And you can organise a free chat with me on my website if you would like to get to know a bit more about me and if we're a good fit. That is all. Peace out.